Now, at the outbreak of COVID-19 sometime in February, the World Health Organization, WHO, listed Nigeria as one of the high-risk African countries. Now, indicators, especially demographic spread, maybe high poverty level, and maybe huge infrastructure deficit suggest underlying reasons. But fortunately, weeks after the index case was imported into the country by an expatriate, Nigeria recorded lower confirmed positive cases and deaths compared with the very high fatality cases in other developed countries within the same corresponding period. Now, Nigeria's efforts at flattening the COVID-19 curve has been described as exceptional and was also singled out by the same WHO as a reference point for the rest of the world on how to deal with the pandemic. Like other parts of the world also, Nigeria activated measures such as social distancing, lockdown, in the hope of containing the spread of the virus. It is the belief of professionals in the management of viral infections, such as the new strain of COVID-19, that in the absence of a cure or vaccine, asking people to maintain social distancing or outright stay at home is the best prevention. But as it turned out, those measures have reversed earlier efforts by government to spike up the economy and improve the living conditions of many Nigerians. For instance, the lockdown and restriction of movement have created a decline in demand and consumption of goods and services, by of course enabling low business investments and transactions. Now, artisans, vendors of food items and daily income earners are reeling under the pains of those measures. In responding to the COVID-19 curve, government, that's the federal government, have had to review policy decisions, expand or streamline fiscal policies, and at the same time introduce some fiscal stimulus packages to cushion prevailing shocks. What exactly are those stimulus packages and how are they being implemented? Are they sustainable? Who are targeted beneficiaries? This is our focus this week on Late Edition. I am Claire Adilabu Abdul-Razak, thanking you once again for joining me on the program. Dr. Zainab Ahmed is a seasoned accountant who has served in both public and private sectors. She brings to bear considerable knowledge and experience in financing, reporting, public financial management, budget formulation and execution, public sector reform, natural resource accountability, national projects management, as well as macroeconomic, monetary and fiscal policy coordination. Mrs. Ahmed holds a BSc in accounting from the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and an MBA from Ogun State University, Agoiwoye. She has served in the Nigerian Public Service in various high-ranking positions. She was Executive Secretary and National Coordinator of the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NETI. That's from 2010 to 2015. And just to add that it was during her tenure that NETI attained 80 compliant status, that's in 2011, and also Nigeria received the Best Implementing Country Award in 2013, also under her watch. She was also member International Board of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, 80, and served as an incoming co-chair of the Open Governance Partnership, OGP. Mrs. Zainab Ahmed has also served at sub-national level. She was the managing director of the Kaduna Investment Company Limited from 2009 to 2010. She is Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and works closely with the leadership of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And of course, her duties include coordinating fiscal and monetary policies of the federal government of Nigeria. She, just a reminder, spearheaded the development and launch of the Strategic Revenue Growth Initiatives, SRGI, which is of course a cross-agency suite of interventions aimed at boosting revenues in Nigeria. Remember, she launched the Project Lighthouse, another data-driven artificial intelligence engine supporting development of a more efficient revenue assessment methodology that analyzes and provides an analytic view of revenue sources across the country. Now, of course, the Honorable Minister, of course, was instrumental to the reforms in the 2019 Finance Act and the return of Nigeria's budget cycle to January to December. She was chair of the Interministerial Tax Team, leading coordination of the humanitarian and development response in Northeast Nigeria. She's a fellow and member of many professional bodies. Now, let me quickly introduce to you my second guest on today's program. Dr. Ramatu Tijani Aliyu is an urban planner and astute politician. She's an alumna of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, also, with BSc in Urban and Regional Planning. She holds a master's degree in public administration and is currently undergoing a PhD program. On account of her leadership skills, she was conferred with an honorary degree by the Commonwealth University in London. Now, Dr. Ramatu Aliyu is also a banker and a philanthropist and founded an NGO that advocates women and youth empowerment and was at the time managing director of a private civil engineering firm. In 2004, she was appointed special advisor on women affairs, youth and social development. That's, of course, at the local government level, at the Gwagwalada Area Council of the FCT. She ran for the office of the Kwali Abuja Federal Constituency in the National Assembly in 2007, although she was not successful. A year later, in 2008, she was appointed vice national chairman of her party. She was also the national woman leader of the All Nigeria People's Party, ANPP, and later All Progressives Congress Party, after the party and other political parties merged in 2014 and served, of course, till 2018. She's currently the Minister of State for the Federal Capital Territory, FCT. Wow. Honorable Ministers, incidentally, it's the first time I'm going to have two ladies, on Late Edition. So the pleasure is mine hosting both of you this week.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Claire, for having us.
For the purposes of clarification, Honorable Minister of Finance, I just like for you to talk to us. What's all this making the round about loss of 700 billion naira COVID-19 relief fund to fire? You were in fact being quoted to have announced at the press briefing that files and documents of the relief funds were all burnt down.
Well, it is fake news. I never granted any press conference. Yes, we had a fire at the Office of the Accountant General on the 4th floor. 2 administrative offices were affected. There is no extensive damage to the building. We don't keep funds in the Office of the Accountant General. Monies are kept in the Central Bank of Nigeria. We have a major data center in the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, the basement floor. It was not affected. The system had to be shut down as a precaution for 1 day. After 24 hours, the system is up and running. So there is no money that is missing. I wish we had 700 billion donations from this intervention, but we don't. What we have up till today, and thanks to the well-meaning Nigerians and large corporates, it's under about 30 billion.
So how much are such fake news?
So it is fake news.
How much of such fake news really, how has it affected the whole of, government efforts within this, very critical period in our history?
Well, unfortunately, the social media has a lot of advantages, but it also has a lot of disadvantages. And part of the disadvantages is if you don't stay focused, it distracts you. I don't get distracted by negative news from social media. I stay focused. I just read it and move on and just do the next thing that I'm supposed to do, so it doesn't worry me at all.
Honorable Minister of FCT, how are you dealing with fake news in this period?
Well, you take it like one of those things, and especially with the boredom of sitting at home. Some people just sit and I believe put down a script one thing or so that will also make the round. But if you are there to remain focused, you know exactly what you are doing, and you know that well-meaning Nigerians that you are targeted at, that you are serving, do understand exactly well what is going on. Then you remain focused to keep serving. Eventually, fake news will continue to remain fake news.
And I know this is not the purpose of our conversation, but do you think it's as a result of inadequate information being out there, you know, poor sensitization of what government is doing?
I don't really think so anyway, because if you think it's about inadequate information, then they will make use actually of the information out there. But sometimes you will see, even when informations are being put out there, they are scripted to suit some cap and caprices. So I think probably we'll put out more information around to tell you that if there is a mindset, you know, to mischievously misinterpret or present issues, it will always be done that way.
Well, I can't say that government is perfect in its information efforts, but I must say that there has been a lot of improvements in our information efforts, to the extent that the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 briefs the public on an every other day basis. The President himself has briefed the nation. I myself have made a press conference. Several ministers have on their own addressed the nation regarding the efforts from their own sector. So there's a lot of information out there. We might not be as constant as CNN, repeating what we're doing on an hour-by-hour basis, but we're doing a lot in terms of trying to engage people. And also, Claire, thank you for inviting us, because for me this is another opportunity to also inform the nation on the various things that we're doing.
That brings us to the focus of our conversation. Even before COVID-19, you know, was imported, let's use the words now, imported into the country, our economy, you know, was oscillating in terms of growth rate and all that. And there was even prediction by international, you know, financial institutions of a probable contraction in terms of, you know, in growth. How huge is the impact of COVID-19 on our economy?
A very significant impact. Before the COVID-19, our country has been growing consistently for about 12 quarters, 13 quarters actually, continuous growth. Inflation was also contained from 18% in January 2017 to down to, in October last year, about 11%. Unfortunately, it started to rise because of rise in some food items. But we were growing at a consistent level, but not at the level we need to grow considering the size of our economy and also considering the growth of our population. Then comes COVID-19. And literally, let me say, it has a huge impact. First of all, on the health infrastructure in the country. Our health infrastructure is not adequate to cope with a crisis the type of COVID-19 pandemic, and we hope that it is contained. That's why the President had directed that all efforts must be geared towards containing the health crisis, because if the health crisis gets out of hand, it has an even greater impact on the economy. Then, in addition to the global health crisis, there was this war between Saudi Arabia and Russia, and in an extended manner, the US is also a part of it, that crashed the crude oil price. The crude oil forms about 45% of the revenues of the Federation. And so that, again, so it's a double whammy. While we're containing a health crisis and spending a lot of resources, which were not previously planned for, we now also have a significant decline in our revenue. So our revenue has gone down by about 45%. And the impact of the decline in crude oil price also has an effect in non-oil revenue sectors. So for example, because globally trade is standing still, supplier lines are broken, it affects customs revenue because there will be less inputs and inputs coming into the country and also less exports going out of the country. It affects even some things like VAT rates, again because of low economic activity. Maybe the component that might be slightly insulated will be company income tax, because company income tax is taxes that companies are paying from previous year assessment. So it's assessment of 2019 that is being paid this year. But even that, we are projecting that it might be affected because companies need to be wary of their current liquidity so that they stay afloat and they don't go under.
Dr. Ramatu, I don't know, for you, what does this mean in terms of revenue generation, in terms of living conditions? You are Minister of State for the FCT.
Well, thank you very much, Claire, for inviting me to this program. But I would say very practically that the Federal Capital Territory is experiencing a very difficult time than it's ever had, because not only is it overseeing the affairs of people and operating like a state, it also hosts the seat of the federal government. So two hydra-headed decision-making kind of pattern where you must adhere also strictly to suit the rules and regulations of the federal government, at the same time as looking down the people, especially in the satellite towns and suburbs that happen to have a different lifestyle. Revenue generation here, practically the Federal Capital Territory being a civil servant town and mostly workers. And then on the other hand, the satellite towns and suburbs housing the locals, the indigenes, majority who just earn and live by the day's earning, what they transact in their markets and what they sell and buy. Practically, the economic level is low, especially having cut down on businesses and enforcing the sit-at-home rule. If you look at it, the setting of the Federal Capital Territory having exceeded the average population of the Federal Capital Territory from over 6 million to an explosion of uncaptured extra 3 to 4 million staggered across the Federal Capital Territory. Now, as it is, the sit-at-home order even is not only burning hard. The accommodations in some places, you'll find 10, 20 people in a room. So the usual bustling and hustling of the day takes their mind off that until the nights when they go to sleep. But now that they're all back to sit at home, you'll find the population concentration in the houses. That is not also easy. They don't go out to transact these businesses as they eat by the day, they feed by the day, majority of them in the satellite town. Then we find it difficult, not only even are we not earning more revenue or generating more revenue, but we are saddled with also responsibility of overseeing their affairs, which takes the capital down to the reason of real packaging palliatives to see how we reach out.
Sorry to interject. This is a very critical period.
Absolutely.
For you, what are the gaps that the situation had thrown up, in terms of administration, in terms of living conditions of the people? What are the gaps that you have found, at this particular period?
This has actually exposed the deficits in infrastructure, not because they weren't provided, but because it practically, exposes the overstretch on the users of existing facilities. So this also now takes us back to the drawing board of planning.
Let's look at also the education sector, because now all schools are closed, especially here in the FCT, children at home, learning it's not going on. What does this tell us? What does this expose us to?
Yeah, practically immediately the Federal Capital Territory Administration embarked straight on working on, students to be taught using the TV stations and the e-learning pattern. So this has also brought a new dimension that we have to up our game to know that it is practicable. And I think soon we'll embark on that. But for the private schools that maintain the standard we had given before, a lot of them have already complied and the children are learning from home.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Minister of Finance, I was listening to the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, express shock at, the gaps, especially in the healthcare sector that it's seen. And we've been investing, funds at the healthcare sector. I'm wondering, what could be responsible for that? Is it that, we are mismanaging the funds? Because he said he didn't realize that there's so much gap, in the healthcare sector, in terms of facilities, in terms of equipment, in terms of personnel.
Well, let me say that if there's anything positive that has come out of the COVID-19 pandemic situation is that we now have an opportunity to upgrade our healthcare infrastructure. The assessments that have been done countrywide is that the gap is huge. And the Presidential Task Force, chaired by the Secretary to the Government, has made an assessment, and they have a plan to retrofit and fully equip at least one tertiary healthcare center in the state and build a number of isolation centers in each state. The budget has been approved by His Excellency the President. We're in the process of releasing funds to them. NCDC has, from the very beginning of the outbreak of this pandemic, has been asking for resources, and everything they asked for has been provided to them immediately. Lagos State, that is the epicenter of the crisis, also reached out to the President for intervention, and the President approved 10 billion, and we released it to them immediately. So far the PTF, and between the PTF, the Lagos State government and NCDC, we have about 102 billion that has been earmarked for them. And this is part of the 500 billion economic stimulus package that we announced earlier this week. We'll be working with the National Assembly because there will be a need to pass pass the MTF on the budget. So this 500 billion is provided in the new amendments that we're making. I see also an opportunity for, like my sister said, for the states to up their game. We see an opportunity to provide more care for our healthcare personnel. While they normally would have hazard allowances, we have an opportunity now to upgrade those allowances to provide for them life insurance covers, because they are at the front line and they're risking their lives to save ours. So there's an opportunity for us to do much better in the healthcare sector in the country. Yeah,
you said earlier on that our revenue has declined by 45%. Now the lockdown is still in force. Borders have been closed, which means, of course, like you said, the supply side is non-existent. Goods are not coming in. We are not selling. Remittances are not coming in. Are we on the verge of inflation?
Inflation? Yes, inflation will go up. Our projection is for 2019. Our previous projection was inflation was going to be in the region of 12.5%. Now we've revised that to about 15%. We even have revised our GDP numbers, which was 2.9% for 2020, down to a possible recession if we don't take measures very, very quickly. So our assessment is we can go into a recession in 2020 unless very quick and bold palliative measures are taken.
So you said recession, not depression.
Recession.
Recession.
Yes.
Okay. So we are likely to go into recession if this is sustained.
If measures are not taken very, very
yes, that's if the lockdowns and COVID-19,
So if the COVID-19 extends beyond our assessment, if it extends beyond 6 months, then we will be in bigger trouble than we have already assessed, because it means the standstill of activities will have a larger impact. We hope it doesn't go that way. We hope that this lockdown across the states, even if it's not uniform, is staggered, that it doesn't go beyond 3 to maximum of 6 months.
Are we planning for that?
Yes, we have to. But the immediate plans we're doing now is assuming that it will go to an average of 6 months, and after that things will begin to turn. We are seeing also some positive signals coming from the meetings of the OPEC and OPEC Plus. They are revising their positions, knowing the impact, global impact of the war on different countries in the world. They've started talking to each other. They have agreed to some cuts, but they still have to engage the US and other major suppliers like Canada. So if that happens, well, it means that we will see a gradual restoration of the crude oil market.
Dr. Ramatu Tijani, I'd also like you to tell us how you're projecting. Should COVID-19, continues into, far into what we are, our expectation, how prepared is the FCT, and what proactive measures are you, envisaging? But that will be when we come back. This is Late Edition, and I'm speaking with 2 female ministers, the Minister of Finance and Budget and National Planning, and of course the Minister of State for the FCT. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Late Edition this week, and of course we're looking at how Nigeria has been responding or is responding to COVID-19. And I have with me 2 female ministers, Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and of course the Minister of State for the FCT. Once again, thank you ladies for joining me. Yes, how are you projected into 6 months from now? Should lockdowns and all the measures taken to contain COVID-19, sustains?
Well, first and foremost, since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria and by extension the Federal Capital Territory, we have tried as much as possible concentrating the efforts now on prevention of the spread, preventing of community spread. So the city center that happens to experience the index cases, is being gathered jealously and not allowing, proper mixture or too much, movement on people.
Are all the cases located within the city center? Because we hear that there are some cases in some of the satellite towns.
No, so far so good. There is no case in the satellite town. Okay. All the cases are concentrated within AMAC. And that is what we are doing, and that is why the much fumigation and trying to reduce the influx of people in and out of the FCC, the Federal Capital City.
But AMAC extends to places like Kurudu, Orozo.
And we are yet to see any cases.
There are rumors about that.
No, that's not true.
Okay, so
with the data we have now, we try to regulate all those people from coming in, and as much as possible, we are looking at the possibility of, should they not obey the proper sit-at-home order from those areas, there will be a lockdown of the FCC, the city center, to safeguard the satellite towns. For we look at the population concentration and the pattern of living in the satellite towns and the suburbs.
You need to go there. There's nothing like lockdown.
There is no lockdown. And we have our, as regards that, we also have advocacy teams going around.
I haven't seen any. I live in one of the satellites.
Like
I haven't seen.
Where is that?
I live around the Kurudu axis.
They will get there.
Axis.
Yes, they will get there. We are also reducing the number of people you put on the street in the name of advocacy. So to some extent, there are defined teams, so they cannot be everywhere at the same time.
Okay, let me hit you with the stimulus package for the FCT before I look at what the federal is doing. Because
and before I tell you what we're planning in the next 6 months for the federal capital.
Yes. Let's look at this stimulus package. Tell us.
Okay, good. The FCT, first and foremost, formed a committee, and there is a structure, a robust structure from the top to the bottom, consisting, for instance, at the top, the ministerial level, the 9-man committee consisting of the senator of the Federal Capital Territory, the 2 House of Representative members. You have members representing the CAN and the League of Imams.
So far, how many people have received whatever you...
No, we are yet to distribute.
You are yet to distribute?
Yes, we'll commence within next week.
Okay.
That has to do with our decision to ensure that we have the entire goods down, because what is good for the good is good for the gander. What rationale will you say that you start serving and you cannot serve simultaneously? You have it in one area council and you are telling the others to wait for a week or 2 until you are done. So we are trying to see how all will be taken at the same time, the 6 area councils. So
you are not using the FG template?
No, we are not using the FG.
You have your own template?
Yes, we have our template. We have 9-man committee up with all representatives of civil society organization, women, youth, the political representatives at the House of Rep members and the Senate. You have the Algon chairman, that's at the top ministerial level. Then these 9 men will also administer to the area council chairmen that are 6 in number, that under them now have another 9-man structure with the same pattern, the template.
Isn't it too elaborate?
No, if you look at it, by the time everyone is in its place, because that time we will announce a total lockdown of the satellite towns, then you will have only 9 men per ward distributing the entire thing within the entire households.
Are you going to lock down when the period of incubation is over?
That will not be.
Because already FCT is on lockdown.
FCT is on lockdown, but how do you determine the period of incubation? When some people are just testing positive, and if you just have new positive case, his period of incubation probably give him another 14 days. So the spread is on and on. So there is no pegged period of incubation.
So when are you looking? Just give us a time frame. When are you hoping to start?
We'll start next week and we'll conclude in 1 week.
In 1 week.
Because we are, and then it does not stop there. We also have in stock when it's, God forbid, we do not plan for it to keep, protracting as the pandemic period. But should it extend beyond what we have now, we still are ready to go back to visit them again and again.
I'll come to you to tell us the content.
Okay.
Because we know the content of the FG. Honorable Minister of Finance, let's look at the budget. You've said, of course, there's a review of the budget, which you've presented to the National Assembly. How much are we looking at? Reviewing the budget now from the 10-point-something trillion, how much are we looking at?
I didn't say we have presented the budget to the National Assembly. I said we consulted with them.
Okay.
So there's still a process of us finalizing, getting executive approval, then the President sends it to them formally. We set out to cut 1.5 trillion from the budget.
From 10 point?
From 10.89,
okay.
We set out to cut out 1.5 trillion. But when the President now directed that you can't touch salaries, you can't touch major projects, you can't touch pensions, so we're now limited to looking at administrative capital so that we don't touch major projects, and that reduced the size of what we needed to cut. But we're able to cut down on NMPC upstream capital expenditure. So we had savings of about, first of all, 457 billion from removal of fuel subsidy, and then a further 192 billion from upstream projects that are being implemented by NMPC, that we're saying you need to slow down on these projects, stretch them out. So we're not stopping the project, but we're slowing down the payment that needs to be made for the project implementation. Then on the side of the capital budget for ministries, departments and agencies, we're cutting 313 billion. Then on overhead, we're cutting roughly about 16%.
So on the whole,
so 20% on. So it comes to an average of, we couldn't get to the 1.5 trillion. It comes to about 1.2 trillion. But then we now have to put in this 500 billion.
That's
the stimulus package, because
that you're hoping to get, or is it in?
We have resources for those, local resources for those. So it's not donations, it's not loans. It is federal government funding available that we're able to scan.
That's the 500 billion.
That's the 500 billion. So, but they were not budgeted for. So we have to put them in the new budget. So that nets off the savings from what we're doing. Ideally,
where did we source? Where did this the fund come from?
We have a number of special accounts that are set up by law to serve different purposes. So those special accounts we're borrowing from. The National Assembly will be working with us in this. We will define how much is going to be borrowed from each of those accounts to be paid back in later years when things are better. And it helps us to get started, because we have funds now to pay for the healthcare response, which is urgent and immediate.
Is it from this 500 billion?
Yes.
That the 5,000 naira SIP is being paid?
So the 5,000 naira SIP is from the 2020 budget. Okay. We haven't started the palliatives from the for the social investment on the stimulus package. We have not started that. The President directed that apart from the healthcare intervention, he put together a committee chaired by His Excellency the Vice President to design the stimulus package. So there's going to be a number of things. Sorry,
Honorable Minister. So the 5,000 naira being distributed across it's not part of FG's palliative.
It is not. So there will be other palliatives from that, but what is being distributed now is from the existing 2020 budget. Remember that we have 400 billion for the social investment already in the 2020 budget.
So which is still the social investment, part of the social investment?
Yes. So it's not it's not a new program, is the existing program that is being implemented.
Okay, because people need to understand that. Yeah. Because the information out there is, everybody is getting 20,000 naira COVID-19 palliative.
No, so this is the existing program. The 20,000 naira is to beneficiaries that are already in the conditional cash transfer program. That's not to say that in the current palliative that there will be no new programs that will be added onto what is already defined in the budget for the social investment program. So we are doing some work chaired by the Vice President with a couple of ministers as members to define the various type of public works and palliatives that need to be carried out. So there will be public works like building of roads, and our view is that it is good that you put people to work as well, while the people that are very poor and vulnerable and some that cannot even work, you give them stipends to help them. But
sorry, I'm going to be interjecting because I want some clarification.
Yes, go ahead.
Now, I'm not even talking about the loans now. Let's look at the 500 billion naira, which is meant for, it's specially dedicated to cushion COVID-19 shocks. What are the targets, or who are the targets?
So, first of all, let me just put it in 3 buckets. Upgrade of healthcare infrastructure.
Okay.
Carrying out public works to put people to work, especially young people to work, so that they can earn some wages from those work. And also making provisions for the poor and the vulnerable, the weak that cannot actually work. And then subsequently, any other programs that we see becomes evident that we need to do.
So the people like daily income earners, food vendors, market women, you know, and other private, you know, enterprises, are they captured?
Not in this 500. Not in this 500.
So how are they supposed to
remember that? Okay, I didn't announce it in this program, but we also have some funding that we have applied for, and we're trying to pursue from the World Bank, from the African Development Bank, from the Islamic Development Bank, and from the IMF. So when those funds come, we will design more programs. So there will be programs that will be designed to help small businesses and micro businesses. So in some of the programs could be that they're given soft loans with no interest.
To what tune?
It depends on on the work that the committee the committee chaired by the Vice President is doing. I'm not in a position to announce that now, but we're looking at the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment has made proposals on how we can provide cushion to those small.
Is there a template to, you know, for disbursement of that?
Well, let me tell you what we will not do. We will not be disbursing cash. We will not be disbursing cash. Any interventions will be providing will be to people that have bank accounts and BVN numbers.
Okay.
We believe that cash disbursement is too high a risk. The risk of not only theft but also misuse of the funds.
Some people who have BVN are already people who can, you know, who can withstand, who are well-to-do, who can. So how do you differentiate between those who need or who, you know, should be reached, you know, through the use of BVN? Are you going to look at how much is in the account?
You need to find a way to make an assessment of who requires the need. And I'll give you an example. If we decide to use the telephones, for example, because you can now do your banking also by telephone, we can do an analysis that shows us that anybody that does a top-up or recharges their phone up to only 100 naira in a month,
my goodness,
that person needs help. And also, you can look at the turnover within the banking system of a particular account and decide on a minimum threshold and say this person needs help. Because there is no time for you to go out and physically register people. So you have to depend on systems that already have biometric data of people.
Let me share something with you. Civil servants, for instance, people like us, you know, the cameramen, those on the street, for instance, you know, the nature of my job, you know, demands that I top up my phone. I make calls consistently, and I can spend as much as 3,000, 4,000, and as much.
You don't need a palliative.
No, but I don't need the palliative. It's just because the nature of my job.
No, there are people who in such a bad financial shape that in a month they actually load just 100 naira. So that's an indication. There is no perfect way to make an assessment. We just need to try using electronic means, which is the banking system, as well as the telecom system. I'm not saying it's perfect, but that is as close as it can get. I know that there are people, and I know there are people that will say, if you go to the community leader, he will tell you who are the poorest. Yes, it is possible. They can tell you who are the poorest.
There are people who are managing, you know, who are self-employed, who have maybe one staff or whatever, and, you know, probably have some money.
And they don't have a bank account? And they
have a bank account, but the money in their bank account, you know, I don't know. But we need the palliative.
Well,
what I'm saying is...
So there's a different set of palliatives. There's the one that you're just giving aid, grants. There's the one that you're giving loans. So for businesses that are small, already there are announcements, and there need to be more of financing that is as low as 5%. And when we make an assessment, if it needs to go lower, or if government needs to take the cost of that interest, then government will take it. Okay. But we would prefer that for businesses, however small it is, what you're giving the person is a loan, so that there's a discipline for them to bring back. just as we're working to negotiate with the central banks and the commercial banks to suspend charging of interest.
What will be the tenure of this loan? Because right now, a lot of people are home. These people you're targeting are home.
So that
businesses are not going on.
That is a subject of design. But the thing is to be able to give them resources so that their businesses can at least stay afloat and continue. To be able to sustain the debt service on current facilities that they have so that they can retain whatever resources they have to be able to grow the business. This is also in addition to tax palliatives that we have given in the 20...
I know. Let me put it on hold. I'm going to come to the tax incentives and exemptions and all that. We have very limited time to write off. Let's talk about the content of your palliative and who are the targets.
Okay. In the palliative now set targeted at 100,000 identified vulnerable families in the federal country.
How do you define a vulnerable person?
Okay.
Because I'm vulnerable. Yes, I'm vulnerable. I don't have a car.
Okay.
I don't. Yes,
that is not the vulnerability in this context, and that is why in the identification teams we raised are qualified, eminent residents or indigents within that area with each representative. We know ourselves. FCT made it community-based. They own the program themselves. We will bring the palliatives. They will identify not only the vulnerable ones, but even the households that happen to, because we are doing a door-to-door exercise in this distribution. It's the other way around. It's not like they're coming out to pick. They're going on the street to queue. We are using the houses, and when we serve you, we cross the house.
What are you serving them?
Now we are serving them. I wanted to finish with the structure.
Yes, because we must.
Okay,
yes.
We'll be serving them. We have 5 kg bags of rice. Depends on the population of the family, the number of the family. You could have as much as 2 at a time. Then another bag, again containing semovita, 3 kg.
So food items.
Yes, food items, basically down to
plus
tomato,
cash?
Maggi.
Cash?
No cash.
No cash.
We are not encouraging cash. We are giving them all they need.
For how long?
And then maybe for a week or 2, depending. Then we return back to the same thing to serve again. For some do not have storage capacity.
So how long do you intend to do this? As long as the COVID-19 issue
hopefully sustains? Because we will also know that as it continues or lingers on, we are on the drawing board 24/7. To also, we are open to adjustments from various advisors and representatives of the group. This is the beginning, of course, that we're about to serve. We are not saying we'll be devoid of some teething problems here and there, but as we move on, definitely we will get better and stronger. But at the same time, the biggest advocacy is for them to respect the laws and stay at home to make it less cumbersome. And then as much as possible, we cannot, in the process of taking down palliatives to the people we serve, get them exposed to the same virus we are shielding them from. So that is why we are insisting they stay at home. Then the representative of the family comes to receive the palliative. There will be direct video coverage of that exercise from place to place. We have outnumbered.
Will there be a designated center where you say, okay, if you are from this location, gather at this location,
no,
or like you said, door to door?
Door to door, just like we do our campaigns, just like we do the election team, but rather than going to the polling unit officers will move.
We'll be monitoring that. We'll keep an eye on that. Honorable Minister, let's look at the loans from IMF. When Nigerians hear loans from IMF, everybody sits up. So these loans, are they concessionary? Are they with interest?
Yes, they're concessionary loans from the IMF, for example. It's a 1% interest rate. We have a 3.25 years moratorium and a 5 years repayment period after the moratorium. And these loans from IMF comes with no conditionalities. What the IMF has done is open up an opportunity for IMF member countries to access up to 100% of their own shareholding within the IMF. So what we have asked for is 3.4 billion US dollars, which is the shareholding that we have in the IMF. Up till today, about 80 member countries have asked to access those facilities. It doesn't come with any conditionalities. It is not an IMF program. It is a program that is designed to be a fast-track process, so we can get it within a month, and we can now deploy it.
The concern of Nigerians is servicing the debt, the loans.
The debt service obligation is part of the analysis we're doing. We are also working with all the multilaterals to defer and restructure our debt service obligation to give us more fiscal space to be able to accommodate these new borrowings. We need the infusion of funds now. If we don't do this, then we will actually go into a deeper crisis.
Some economic experts believe that we don't have to go a borrowing, that we could look for domestic funds. We could source our funds from home. And they say, look, the CBN has the capacity to print more money. Do we have that latitude?
The CBN is already offered a number of packages, totaling about 3.5 trillion, but all of those for the CBN can only be loans to the private sector. Loans to large and small businesses. So they have loans for infrastructure, they have loans for the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry, they have loans for small, medium enterprises. All of them loans at very, very concessionary rates. While government has to spend, and we don't have the fiscal, the resources to spend according to the size that we have. So our option is to borrow, very low cost borrowing, so that we're able to spend and reflate the economy. This is the time when governments should actually spend more money, not cut down on spending, because you need to increase consumption to reflate the economy. So if you don't have the resources, the option is to go and find low-cost borrowing and spend. We're also borrowing locally, but within what is allowed in the 2020 budget.
Yes, I get that. Now, I want to lump two questions. I have less than 2 minutes to round off this conversation, and that's with the Financial Act policy. The tax incentives and exemptions and all that, which was meant to, of course, aggregate demand, and all that. Is it still sustainable in the light of things?
Well, it is. It's as if it's fortuitous. It's as if we knew that there was going to be a downturn. We designed the Finance Act to provide relief to small businesses. And that's exactly what other countries are doing now. We already made a provision to zero taxes for very small businesses, so they're not paying company income tax, and that means they're retaining monies that they can and use to enhance their businesses. We reduce taxes for small, medium enterprises from 30% to 20%. So those are incentives that you need to provide, and we've already done that.
Okay. And finally for you, Honorable Ministers, I was listening to the former Finance Minister, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, talk about, the need for African countries to actually seek, debt relief or something like that. Is that doable?
We're already doing that. We've already met as African finance ministers. We have agreed to reach out to the multilateral institutions to defer our debts, to restructure our debts, to give us physical space. So it will mean extending the tenor of the facilities or suspending repayment for a certain period to give us, so that we can retain more of our revenues to use for domestic growth.
Okay, Dr. Ramatu Adi, your final words. What word, because as we speak, a lot of the satellite areas I don't think they understand what lockdown means. A lot of activities are still going on. People are moving out in their droves, having a lot of conflicts with security agencies. Just talk to us, as your final contribution.
Well, one word quickly. The lives of our families and our dear ones is more precious to us, and it's more precious to this government, and should be more precious to us than the businesses we are going out to transact. In the period of this pandemic, we also are aware worldwide, like we watch on the TVs and the social media, that it is real and we are safer at home. But then, in this event, the Federal Capital Territory has also made available not only providing temporary facilities, but has used this opportunity to also upgrade the quality of existing hospitals, Idu, Zuba, Gwagwalada, this day dome, and then that is also getting set. We are not saying we are predicting that there will be an explosion in the infection rate, but we are getting set for that as we appeal to them to please
stay at home.
Stay at home. That is most fundamental.
All right, we cannot exhaust the issues.
A word
yes,
of appreciation to our healthcare personnel, the frontline workers that are risking their lives to save ours.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you.
On top, the FCT also made available now to start immediately by paying the frontline workers, just like they did in the Ebola period. We have 50,000, daily for the doctors.
The frontline workers, do they include journalists as well?
No. Health workers, my dear, in the hospital.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Pharmacies.
You are not so vulnerable.
You are not vulnerable. Will you accept that from me?
All right, ladies. I want to really appreciate both of you. Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and of course, Honorable Minister of the FCC. Thank you, both of you, for coming to this edition this week.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
All right, and that's it from me and the rest of the production crew. Bye-bye.